If you're wondering how consumer apps make so much money and you want to make that money too, I have the playbook here. I have spoken to probably over 1,000 consumer app founders that have come to my house for events. I've spoken to them, I've learned from them, I've taught them things. It has been a pretty good feedback cycle. And out of that, I have gotten this playbook, which I think honestly are the bounds, like the guidelines of how you can make a perfect consumer app and make a bunch of money yourself. I use these to make my own app and I made a bunch of money. We sold it, we scaled it, everything was great. Now I'm gonna give this to you and you can use it for your own app. So the first thing that every single successful consumer app does is they target an emotional aspect of their target audience. So what that means is they understand what they are trying to sell to the target audience. So use an example like Cal AI, right? The people that are using Cal AI feel a certain way about how they look, and they want to cut back on their calories because that's how they lose weight, right? And they need some tool to help them do that. Cal AI comes in and says, hey, basically they say, hey, you don't want to be fat anymore? Come and download our app. That is basically it. And then they invoke a feeling of shame and guilt in you through onboarding, through their marketing, because you don't look the way you want to look. It's pretty brilliant, and that is one of the most successful examples of invoking emotion in your target audience and turning it into a successful product after. These consumer app founders also are not building blind. So all of the market segments that they're entering are proven already. So Cal AI, perfect example, right? There have been other calorie trackers. They just were not augmented with AI in the same way that Cal AI was, right? So these are proven markets. These are proven markets where there's already consumer spending. They're not building a brand new market from scratch. They're not, creating a path that has never existed before. This is a route that has been played multiple times, and all they're doing is augmenting it slightly. A really successful technique that I've seen happen as well a lot is if you look at what is successful in the American market, and maybe that market is very saturated for whatever that niche is, if you go to other countries, like Brazil is huge for consumer apps. If you go to Brazil, that app market segment might not be as crowded as it is in the US. So that is also a really smart technique that you can use where it's like you're seeing what already exists now and you're just replicating it somewhere where you have no competition, right? That is a super easy way to get some easy wins. They also understand their ICP. They understand what causes their ICP to convert to a paying customer. They understand the whole emotion, they understand the journey that ICP has been on to seeing that ad, to seeing the UGC content, whatever, how they have felt prior to that, and how they will feel watching it. Once you have a full, thorough understanding of your ICP, you're able to market to a level that someone that is just kind of entering the market for the first time is not able to do. Right? That's why they say, like, if you're going to build something, always build something that you yourself would use. That is really good advice if it's your first time building something. If you have more of a sophisticated pattern and you start recognizing how to play the game and how to understand ICPs, because all it is practice, right? If you start doing that, you can enter pretty much any market, be there for a little bit, understand the target audience, and then you can just direct your attacks on them and just fire UGC at them, fire ad, have all the marketing come back to your app. And it will be incredibly effective because you actually know what will move your ICP from just viewing your ad to converting and paying you money. All of these apps also understand onboarding. If you have seen onboarding of any of these consumer apps, they have very specific structure, right? It usually breaks down to very simple kind of just information in the beginning. They hit you with a paywall. The paywall might be skippable, it might not be. And then if there's more onboarding, it's usually like quizzes. So it's a quiz funnel. Basically asks you to identify what you want changed, why you downloaded the app. It makes you self-identify with whatever they're trying to have you feel, right? Whatever that emotion is, it makes you self-identify with that emotion and just kind of say it to yourself that you're feeling that. And that is basically reassuring the ICP, like the target audience, the user that has downloaded your app, that your app acknowledges the feelings that they have and is actually going to help them solve it, right? Because at the end, they do this little thing where they say, we're customizing your plan, or we're coming up with a personalized view of this for you. And then they hit you with another paywall, and there you are, you're ready to convert. They've also perfected the first interactions of their app. I have said this before, first impressions matter, right? So that onboarding experience, the first time they open that app, it has to be absolutely seamless. There cannot be bugs, there cannot be hitches, everything has to be perfect. If that means that you have to hard code stuff to, make it smooth all the time so there's no like percent chance that there's gonna be some issues, do it. You have to have your first impression super, super solid. That is why I advocate, like, you should not have any authentication, really. If you need authentication, put it after the paywall. But if you can get away with just using device ID or just using the base stuff that is built into the iPhone to authenticate, do that. It is not worth the hassle and the friction of adding like a sign up form or even like a sign in with Google or anything during onboarding. It should be, they download the app, they get straight into onboarding, they see information about the app, they feel however they feel because you take them down some funnel and then you hit them with a paywall. There should be nothing else beyond that. All of these apps show paywalls multiple times. They are not afraid to throw a paywall in your face and say, give me money. And that is something that I see a lot of new app founders be very timid about. They don't want to be very annoying with paywalls. Be annoying, because at the end of the day, if the customer is not paying you, it's not attributing to the success of the app. So if they get frustrated and they leave, it was probably not someone you were going to convert anyway. So it doesn't really matter. Following in that same vein, they're also not adding freemium models. They're not giving 2 tiers where it's like premium access and free access. Their entire app is paywalled. If you want to use the app, you have to pay. It's that simple. That is also something that I see a lot of new time founders, new app creators fall into that trap of like, if I offer a free version, then maybe the user will convert down the line. No, they won't. They almost never will. It's not worth it. Show the paywall, make people pay for it, or they fall off. That's fine. It gives you the answers that you're looking for a lot faster, right? Like, are you actually going to be able to convert people? Is your app actually going to be good, or do you have to pivot? You're going to have very clear answers if you have no conversions. They also understand price laddering. So price laddering is the concept of offering one price at some kind of interval and then another price at a longer interval. And that second price looks more appealing than the first. A perfect example is for our app, what we did was we offered a weekly subscription, which weekly is already kind of like shit, that kind of sucks. Weekly for $8, which is insane. Or we had a yearly subscription for $50. All of a sudden, yearly for $50 doesn't sound all that bad. They're now looking at it as $8 times 52 weeks in a year versus $50. All of a sudden, $50 sounds really good, and they're more compelled to pay for that. This is a trick that a bunch of companies use. There's no difference with consumer apps. It's the exact same playbook. They also understand where their ICP lives on the internet and how to target them with marketing. This is something that I've spoken about before, but when you're building an app, you have to understand who your ICP is, who are you actually trying to target. You have to point all your marketing directly at them. That means using the right platform, using the right type of content, using the right type of, like, if it's UGC, using the right people, actually promoting your product. If you are targeting like 40-plus-year-olds, you want a 40-plus-year-old talking about your product in the video. You don't want a kid, right? You have to find something that resonates with your ICP. And that is incredibly important. And you'll find that most of this comes down to understanding your ICP and all of the habits that your ICP has, like what platforms they are, what they like to consume, how they like to ingest their media, and then just targeting it with marketing. All of the apps that are extremely successful are very, very simple in nature. This is something that we've spoken about before, but it is really, really important to do one thing well versus 10 things decently. If you have one major function, there should be one feature that your app does and it does extremely well. Everything else you could probably forget about. Just do that one thing extremely well. And what that allows you to do is make the app super, super simple, which means now there's no ongoing cost for your app, or the ongoing cost is extremely low compared to if you have 1,000 different features and you have to focus on all these different things. If you have just one thing that you are laser focused on, You make your life easier, you make the user experience a lot simpler, and everything ends up being a lot cheaper in the long run. And probably the biggest point of any consumer app or any consumer product really in general, the UX, the user experience of using the software is dead simple. I have seen so many times app founders come out with a consumer product and it's built like B2B software. And it is just unintuitive, it is very complicated to navigate, and someone needs to watch like a tutorial to fully get how to use the software. Consumers are not going to do that. You need everything to be dead simple. You basically have to hold their hand through everything, make it super simple. And this is where having a very simple app, like one simple action, comes into play, right? Like if they open the app and all they see is one thing and only one thing they can do, they're going to do that. They're not going to mess that up. There's going to be no friction. It's going to be very simple for them. You have to make sure your user experience is as smooth and simple as possible. So that is the playbook for how all these apps are making a bunch of money. That is the pattern they use. Those are all the traits they have. Now, if you go and you look at all these, you write them down, and you really think about your own product or a product you want to make, and you apply all these learnings and all these lessons to it, you will probably come out with a pretty successful product. There's obviously a lot of other factors that go into it beyond this, but this sets a really good foundation for building a successful consumer product. Having said that, if anyone has any questions or anything, feel free to hit in the comments. I am very happy to do my best to help you out. Anyway, that's it. Peace.